Hello, everybody, and welcome to our third Meet the Writers. We are so excited to hear about three wonderful new musicals tonight from five incredibly talented writers. Just to introduce them, Puccia and Kalani Queypo, Missing Piece, Grace McLean and Kate Douglas for Against Women and Music, and Julian Hornik for TENN. So we're going to be hearing from each of these writing teams separately, and they'll come back together to talk some more after each segment. And I wanted to remind the audience that if you would like to ask any questions of the writers, just put it into the YouTube chat and I'll try to get to them all. So I guess with that, we will say goodbye to Kyle, Kalani, Kate, and Grace. And Julian. Hello. Julian. Julian Hornick, book, lyrics, music, all three.
It's true.
It's true, for TENN. So what inspired you to write about the early life of Tennessee Williams?
So it started when I stumbled upon Tennessee's memoirs in a used bookshop in Portland, the summer between my freshman and sophomore year of college. And I picked it up on a whim and I read it and just sort of fell in love with him and his completely unabashed queerness in this crazy 1970s tell-all memoir. But that one really mostly focused on his famous years and his later life. And so I knew I wanted to do something about him. And then when it came time to figure out a thesis for my program at school, I decided, I should probably go back to that Tennessee idea. And it was actually a mentor, professor of mine, who initially was like, well, you seem to be really interested in his late life, but what if you look at what he was before he was Tennessee? Because that feels like maybe you'll lock into that a little better. And she was completely right. and then I started digging into that research and sort of fell in love with that version of him.
Yeah, that was good advice.
Yes, thank you, Annette Jolès.
So if you could take us into our first video, which just sort of set that up for us, our first song, Blue Devils.
Totally, yeah. So I guess the first things first, the gist of the show is it's based on the early life of Tennessee Williams, basically from the time that he's pulled out of college by his father for failing his ROTC courses, up through his years in New Orleans and California, basically the aimless time he spent figuring out who he was before he even had the Tennessee moniker. And the brunt of the show really focuses on the parallel between him and his sister Rose, and both of them struggled for their whole lives with various forms of mental illness. And Tennessee wrote about them in his notebooks and referred to them as the Blue Devils, was the sort of personification of his neuroses. And they were the thing that haunted him and kept him up at night, but they also ended up ultimately being the thing that drove him to write. And so this song is sort of the moment when we first meet these personified neuroses of his that he also shares with his sister.
Mm-hmm. Great. So let's listen to our first song of the evening, Blue Devils.
There's power in these white keys. There's power in the clack and clink. There's power in a spring low. There's power in a band of black ink. see you met my friend Winston. Have you met my friend Jack?
He's fiery like a vixen's tail.
He will help you fade to black. Oh boy, don't shut us out. Oh boy, you're gonna need us. Duck and cover, scream and shout. Remember you're the one that freed us. It's time we hear the things we say, 'cause we're not gonna go away. We're genius, we're spark, we're your answer in the dark. There is power in a blank page. There is power in a long and lonesome night. So you can drown us out in blind rage, or you can drop us in the things you write. Another sip, another buck, boy. Biting lips makes you look tough, boy. You make us when you've had enough, boy. Uh-oh, not yet, not yet. Uh-oh, not yet, not yet. Uh-oh, not
Oh, Julian, I just love that song.
Thank
as,
you.
As you know, just to share with the audience, we got 166 applications for this summer, and I listened to the music from all the applications before I assign it to readers to review it. And when I got to that song, I was just stopped in my tracks. I just thought it was so pretty.
So nice of you.
And I love how you combine like the muse and the devil are they're the same thing.
Totally, and it's the same thing. I mean, I think a lot of writers probably relate to that. But for this narrative, it really was that for him, but also for his sister Rose. And one of the things that I really tried to dig into with the show is the extent to which she didn't have the outlet that he did of writing, of sort of this artistic mobility, and what that did for her life and stultifying her, because she was ultimately lobotomized for schizophrenia. So her devils end up winning in a way that they don't for Tennessee.
So tell us about your week with Rhinebeck Writers Retreat. What did you focus on? What did you discover? What were you surprised by?
Yeah. Well, I mean, so going in, really the biggest thing was trying to take this show, which was really over the last couple of years has remained pretty much what it was when it was my college thesis, and kind of yanking it into the present adult life I'm living. And so trying to shed the academic vestiges, because really what the show felt like to me in its old form was, I love it, but it's very much this sort of portrait of an artist, but with everything that entails, and that it's sort of occasionally meandering and really is more of a like zoom in and looking at sort of how Tennessee constructed his persona, but less so why he did, or what he was actually trying to do in constructing it. So going into this week, I was really focused on story and digging back into the research and trying to figure out just sort of a central conflict and some kind of driving force for him that would sort of activate the search for identity, so it wasn't just like the construction of identity for identity's sake, but actually in pursuit of something that has consequence for him in his life and those around him. So that was the impetus going in.
And didn't you discover something in his, I think you told in his diaries, you discovered something. Tell us about that.
And this is how prepared I am. I pulled out my little note card that I wrote down when I found it.
It's so, like we planned this or something.
Exactly. So I went back into his, I mean, it's very, very helpful. His entire journals have been published, which is amazing. So went back into his journals and just sort of on day 2 of the residency, just was like, I'm going to read them front to back, and just started digging through, and pretty quickly found this quote of his from when he was pretty down and when he was back home in St. Louis and feeling really very blue. And he wrote, "I need above everything else to be master of myself. how marvelously that would solve everything in life. Having control over your thoughts and emotions. Is it a hopeless dream, or can I really do it? At any rate, I'm going to try. And when I found that, I was like, oh, that's what the show's about. How helpful. Thank you, Tennessee. What to me that felt like was he's just sort of grasping for any sense of control in this uncertain world that he's living in. And the control that he realizes he can find is his own sense of self and his own being. And so that, for me, gave the sort of pursuit of the persona of Tennessee a reason to be. That he's going from Tom to Tennessee in pursuit of control over his own destiny. And what was particularly exciting about that was that it created a even starker parallel with his sister, who really is not even given the option to pursue this sort of mastering of herself, because as soon as she starts presenting the sort of signs of, they called it dementia precox in the time, but it was schizophrenia, she's immediately institutionalized and lobotomized to sort of this, like, the ultimate loss of self and loss of control. So it sort of, it gave the show these two poles to play off of, but also it felt like a clear forward motion in pursuit of the trying to master oneself.
So Rose is a major female character, and the other one that you told me you worked on more was Irene.
Yes, who didn't exist before this residency, really. In any real way. I mean, she in the show as it was written, she was this sort of one-off reference when Tennessee or Tom first arrives in New Orleans and he moves into this boarding house, and she's one of the denizens of the boarding house, and he meets her, and we don't even see him meet her. We just hear him talking about her, and he very quickly says, like, oh, met this woman, and she has all these paintings in her room. And then the boarding house proprietress is basically like, oh, that's not really an art gallery. She's a lady of the night. Don't fraternize with her. And then he instantly is like, oh, that's so much more interesting. And that's sort of where we leave her. And then in going back into the research, I actually found a reference to her in one of the books I was reading. She was a real figure in New Orleans when he first moved there. And it occurred to me that she would allow this sort of double for Rose so that we don't lose her completely when we get to New Orleans. Because the sort of central triangle of the show is Tom and Rose, the siblings, and then their mother, Edwina, who was very, very much sort of trying her best to keep her family in order as things were crumbling around her, and encouraged Tom's artistic pursuit, and was deadly worried about any prospect for Rose. And so she actually has a double already in New Orleans as the head of this boarding house, but as the show was written, Rose disappears basically until the penultimate scene, and we never see her until then. And so it occurred to me that I could keep that central triangle more intact if I found a double for Rose. And so that's who Irene became over this week, was building this character who has control of herself and her art, and has an outlet in all the ways that Rose does not.
So why don't you, this is a new song you obviously wrote.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
Good lead-in, yeah.
Yes, please introduce this song.
Yes, so this song is called The Light When You Go. And I actually wrote it really by accident once I realized that this double for Rose would be structurally valuable. And in this song, Irene, who is a painter but also a sex worker, is dismissing a man from her room so that she can take advantage of the light in the afternoon to paint him from memory before the memory and him both disappear.
Wonderful. All right, Julian.
Great. Don't even ask it. It's on the tip of your tongue, I could tell, and I don't. I do not want to hear it. Mercer, and this went so well. I mean, you were good for a Wednesday. You were good for a matinee, but this kind of orange early evening, I'm inclined to gift myself alone. So when I say you got what you came here for, don't you tell me that the price ain't fair. 'Cause I played the paramour with scarlet cheek and guilty air. But trust me, I feel alright. My convictions are watertight. I won't lose a drop of sleep tonight. Turn on the light when you go. You ship out in the morning. We'll save your gas for the road ahead. I have heard 1,000 explanations, every word as useless as the last. I'll take $10 instead. Your shirt is under my pillow. Your belt is slung from the desk to the chair. Take your time while I take you in. Never mind, never wasted while it's there. And you got what you came here for. Don't you tell me that the price is steep, 'cause it's not, but I need just a little more. Little something that I get to keep. And I don't want all of you. Don't need a whole wall of you. Understand, but I'll take a part of you. Take you apart, take you apart. Maybe a leg. Throw in a shoe. Show me your eye. Give me a mouth. Give me your hand. Turn on the light when you go. Turn on the light when you go. Turn on the light when you...
Wonderful.
Irene's song.
Irene's song. We have a question from Kathleen, which is, how do you think that Tennessee Williams' inner search mirrors your own inner?
Oh, whew.
The big question.
It's very good, and I think if I had an answer, I probably wouldn't be writing the show still. That's a tough. I mean, I can definitely say that what appealed to me about Tennessee going in as someone worthy of kind of this time and energy and storytelling was that as a young gay person, his sort of unabashed approach to queerness in his work and his life was so sort of monumental to see, even in retrospect, as someone now looking back at how he was pursuing a life as a gay man in the world. And so that was sort of the way in. And I think as I dig around the sort of more kind of the minutia of his psychology definitely has moments of resonance where I'm like, ooh, like I guess that's why I'm doing this.
Well, speaking of Tennessee, that will lead us into our final song, which is yes,
totally, yeah. So this is a new song for Tom as he's becoming Tennessee. And this is another one that's sort of just I really meant to spend the week almost exclusively doing research and structural work. So this one was another song that just kind of popped out, and I was like, thank you, song. But it's as I conceive of it now, basically an 11 o'clock number for him, where one didn't previously exist, and it's very, very closely tied to that quote that I found in his journals about seeking to become the master of himself, about trying to wrest control of his life by wresting control of his identity. And so this song is one he sings after this man, Jim, who he's followed to California, leaves him alone on a pigeon farm where they've both moved from New Orleans. And so now he's alone in California, and he's sort of realized that he moved to California less for the state and more for this man. And now suddenly being abandoned and recognizing this, he really kind of starts to look inward and try to take account of how he's gotten here and what he really needs. And this song is sort of the realization of that.
All right.
And
Here
now
is Julian with Thanks and Blame.
Yes. Great. I've waited half my life to feel a hurt like that. Smash the locks and let it in. It ended faster than it started. Now he's departed, and I'm ready to begin. I'll be here, waiting for someone to call my name. I spent a whole damn year in purgatory, but the story won't end the same, 'cause I have forged myself alone in the fire of all the shit I've known. And I have got some devils of my own to thank and blame. I'll put my trail of lonely nights behind me, swap them out for groggy, solitary days. And I won't let the vines of love entwine me, but I will plant them tangled in my place. I'll be here, waiting for someone to call my name. And if I do not hear it said, I'll scrap the painting but keep the frame, 'cause I can make myself anew, change the where, the what's, the who, as long as I got devil's blow to take. Oh, 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 yeah, yeah. You are not mine, I am not yours, but get this straight, my friend. I am a master of this truth you call pretend. And I'll be here, waiting for someone to call my name. I'll be here, waiting for someone to call my name. I'll be here, waiting for someone to. And then his mother calls his name. Thank you.
Wow, Julian.
So good.
That was gorgeous.
So good.
Yeah, what a
Wow,
song.
man.
Excellent.
Awesome. You said those two songs that you played, you wrote this week?
I guess last week or a week and a half, whenever my residency was. Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's how it works. Yep.
Yes. But yes, last week or 2 weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
Is the production on that first song is so gorgeous, and I want to check out that band that you referenced in the title card.
They're so cool. Yes, they're amazing.
Is that sort of like beautiful, like bluegrass folky feel? Is that the overall timbre of the piece?
Totally. I mean, it's definitely what I've sort of been leaning more and more into over the last couple years for it. And it was there in the initial conception of the show, and definitely in that song. But I've sort of over time been kind of stripping away anything that felt like kind of capital M musical theater-y and
Right.
and kind of replacing it with a brick of folk. It's a terrible metaphor. The folk brick. But the Bandits on the Run who did that arrangement are amazing, and basically now I'm just trying to emulate them with the rest of the show because I love them so much.
It's so great. Beautiful.
So good. I have a question. What's it like to be doing book lyrics, doing everything, right? Like the other two teams, we work together and we collaborate. What is that like when you're you're accountable only to yourself? Because I caught on to the idea of like, oh, here comes a song, and Kyle often keeps me in check, like, hey, let's stay on task. So what's that like?
Oh yeah, well, you've caught on to something. It's I don't recommend it. It's very sloppy and it's very slow and very lonely. But but other than that, it's great. It's I don't always write alone, but this one because it started as my thesis, it really out of like academic necessity, I was like I should probably write my thesis alone. So that was the impetus. But now the show really has sort of existed almost as this kind of semi-therapeutic, like soul searching every couple years for me at this point, that it feels so like kind of intertwined with myself that it's sort of worth the slog of being alone in a room and being only accountable to myself to actually stay on track, which is part of why this week was amazing. It was like, oh, I have this week and very clear parameters and I need to get stuff done in it. And there are other people who care besides like me and my grandparents. So,
and Julian, share what you told me about like the pandemic and leading,
yeah. I mean, I'm sure I'm not alone in this, but at the first 4 months of this time, I was completely useless artistically. I was totally stultified and just sort of kept trying to break through and really, I just couldn't do it. And so I spent really just 4 months kind of reading and doing whatever other work I could do besides music. And so I was actually kind of worried going into this week. And it was one of the reasons that my goals going in were so structure heavy, because I was like, I don't think I could deliver if I was like, I'm going to go in and write a new opening number and a new blah, 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 blah. Like there was no evidence that was going to happen based on the previous 4 months of this. And so it was really like kind of a profound relief to have this week of focus and be like, oh, wait, no, I can still do this. and it still feels good when it comes. And so that was very exciting.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much, Julian.
No, thank you.
With us. And we're going to say goodbye to Julian, Kyle, and Kalani right now. And say hello to Kate and Grace.
Hi.
Hi. Against Women in Music. Exclamation point.
Hard exclamation.
That's non-negotiable, basically.
Yes. So tell us about the musical.
So this show, I suppose I could just discuss the wash, because this week, as we will get to, has been pretty revelatory and shaking things up for us. But Against Women in Music is a musical that explores privilege and class and morality and ambition and womanhood through the eyes of a female piano tuner in the 1800s. And at that time, music was considered dangerous for women to play or even hear because of our delicate constitutions. As you know, it's too much music inflamed the nerves, too little music also, it's, inflamed the nerves. You really couldn't win, basically. We've been working on this musical for 2 years, maybe over 2 years now. And most recently, on and off. Most recently with the Civilians R&D group. And that allowed us to craft a full first act. And I can speak a little bit to that plot, where we were at. And then that's where we were when we entered this week. Is we had Bridget, our piano tuner, who has successfully infiltrated this household, this very rich and very bored household, and activated new fantastical ways of being for these individuals through her superpower of music. And while she's wrapping everyone else around her finger, she's actually most interested in the lady of the household, Celine, who has her own moral code that she goes by as part of the Women's Christian Temperance Union, and also holds the purse strings of the household. So the Act 1 cliffhanger is basically everyone else in the household is totally wrapped around Bridget's fingers, except for Celine. And that's the one Bridget wants most.
And so what happened this last week as you were working, as you came to it?
We took this time we came in thinking we were going to finish Act 2, and that's not what happened. We went back to the essentials of what interested us about this piece in the first place, and what were the core questions we were wrestling with, and how to make those even more. I mean, I'm speaking for myself actually. What's even more intimate and more scary to write about for me right now? We conducted a lot of big experiments this week. We threw everything away. We had lots of little, I had lots of little scene writing bouts to test the limits of the world and what was possible and what was not possible and what interested me, and putting characters in a room who maybe don't belong together. And now we're in a very new, very raw place. I love what Grace says. She says we're doing a jigsaw puzzle, and we're also making up the puzzle at the same time. So,
Grace, tell us what you were thinking about this past week.
Yeah. So, as Kate said, where the last draft sort of left off was really this question of around the character of Celine. Whoa, I've turned into something really amazing on my screen. Is that okay with your screen? Am I still there?
That's what happened this week. We hear you.
I'm gone.
You're pixelated. You're a pointillist.
To be that.
Oh, there you are. There you are.
Oh no. Okay. Well, maybe it'll happen again. Yeah. Okay. So Celine, we're thinking about Celine, and really like, what is that relationship with Celine and Bridget? And that really has, Kate said we've started over many times and have had a lot of conversations and read a lot of research and watched a lot of movies and had a lot of thoughts, but really like something really central that remains is around this relationship between Bridget and Celine and what they sort of represent. I'm going to get to music in a minute, but I'm just going to talk about that because it'll lead me there. So we're interested in this I think idea of like female power and how that is maybe subversive, maybe a little bit scary, and the ways that's accessible. So for these two women in the 1880s, Bridget and Celine, they're both arguably like pretty powerful, but they're doing it in different ways. What Bridget is doing as a piano tuner, like has her own business, she's wearing pants, she's riding a bicycle. These are all things that say something about her sort of throwing convention to the wind and just like living the way that she wants to. Again, she has access to the music, and the music is sort of we're discovering is has to do with touching on passion and desire and something outside of the acceptable structure. So Celine is existing within that structure, very much so, even as a powerful woman. So she's sort of using that structure to her advantage and subverting it in the meanwhile. So she is the one who has the access to the wealth in this family. A little bit unusual, but she's got it. She is a member of the Women's Christian Temperance Union, which I was talking about with you a little bit, Kathy. And it feels like that at that time, this group, Women's Christian Temperance Union, had to do with, they were activists, and they were aligned with the suffrage movement a bit, like those two things were intertwined. But it's interesting because it was still about keeping women in their domain in the home. And the sort of argument around that was like, temperance and alcoholism. Basically, these Christian women were looking at bars and liquor and saying like, this affects the men. And it affects the men negatively. And it affects us negatively because they then come into our home, which is supposed to be our place, and they mess it up. We don't like that. You don't like that because a messed up home means a messed up life for the rest of you and the rest of the structure. We are an integral part of this system. So if you give us a voice and you give us a vote, we will continue to uphold that system. Yes, so that was the sort of way that was all working. So Celine is sort of like, she's working for change, she's working for progress, but she's within this system. And then there's Bridget over here who's like, burn it down. We don't want any of that. What's going to happen when these two women meet? So music, the way music has traditionally and will continue to operate in this piece, it's called Against Women in Music. It's in the title. Bridget is a piano tuner. She is the one who has access to that music. However, the music that we, the audience, hear is not the music that the people in the show hear. I'm really interested in, instead of like somebody playing a song on the piano and us hearing that, what we as the audience will hear is the listeners, the characters' listeners' emotional reaction. Yeah. So that can go a lot of places, which I'm really excited about. I keep imagining the music becoming, I always imagine it becoming like Audrey 2, like the plant in Little Shop of Horrors, where it just like, it gets a little bit too much and it's like, how is it climbing up the walls? How are the walls pulsing? How is everything now sort of on fire with this music? And it like takes over their lives like a kind of monster, like a parasite. Speaking of Parasite, it's one of the movies that we watch.
In a way, you are actually making the music be what they were worried it would be.
Exactly. That's exactly what we're doing. Yeah, we're sort of interested in like, what if these sort of medical no-nos, what if we actually like really went there? Like, what would be the scariest possible thing that could happen if a woman had the power of this music? Like, what would that look like, even to an absurd extent? So yeah, we were looking at a lot of horror, which has been super fun.
I love, well, the way the film The Witch does that so well. It's because I think as a contemporary audience, we can look back on that time of hunting for witches. It's like, oh wow, they had fungus in their grains, or it was clearly just this exploration of X, Y, and Z.
I haven't seen that movie. Is it set in that time, in the Crucible time period? And
yes.
Mm-hmm. It's about a family who lives on has a religious disagreement with the town and goes to live on the fringe of their community. And I don't want to say too much else, but basically it literalizes the horror of what it puts it on screen what people said happened. Like when they said, I saw the devil came to me and said this.
Like, what if your paranoia is real?
It's real. Yes.
It's real.
What if she's actually a witch? What if there was actually a witch in the woods? And it's so amazing to watch as a contemporary audience member, because you actually feel fear in a way that I don't think you do when you come to this in history textbooks. You go, oh, well, clearly witches aren't real. But at the time they were real. And as you're watching this film, it's real to you. You are afraid of what they're afraid of. And I think Grace and I are both very interested in how to make that possible on stage.
So was this a new way of using music for you, or was this sort of a premise all along?
No, I've really been thinking about using music in that way for a long time. So really, for me this week, I was zeroing in on this Celine character, because we have not seen her yet in any of our drafts interact with the music in the way that the rest of her family has. And so I made notes for myself, and I'm going to pull them up. Right. So yeah, I just I made a lot of sketches about what that moment might look like, of Celine coming into contact with something that is outside of the structure that she is very much aligned with, because it gives her strength and it gives her power. And so the question is like, what does Celine's music sound like? And for her character, I've really been thinking of she gets her strength by leaning into her weakness. And so I'm interested in what is that about? I mean, I'm doing this for weakness, like quote unquote weakness, like being, yes, having access to the money and everything, but she's not wearing pants. She is still in her home. She's still technically submissive, but of submission as part of her power. What? I don't know. She said it. And oh yeah, questions around like, who is that strength working for, and what does it cost the individual, and what does it cost the community? For Celine to, I mean, we're really looking at her as like, she has to repress her sort of individual desires in order to operate successfully within this system. But what does that cost her to do that? And what does it really cost her family? And that's like, that is the moment that I've been thinking about for this particular song. I kept trying to envision her like, what if she was a dormant volcano? Like what if that's actually what her character was? And what would it look like to like dream about erupting, but not quite sure what that is and really not wanting it to happen? But, you know, what if she like, her interaction with the music like actually ignites her and she starts setting things on fire in the house, but has to sort of apologize for it. But everyone has to live with this fire. I don't know if that's where we're going, but that's like, that's a moment.
Sounds, is that the introduction for Unflinching? Or
I think it might be.
I think it might be your song Unflinching, which you wrote this past week.
My dear, I wrote it. I finished it this morning. I started it after I talked to you yesterday. I've written a lot of sketches of things this week, and then wanted to share something that's actually a bit of a rewrite of something that's quite old for Celine. But then after having all of these sort of sketches that I made throughout the week, that helped inform this rewrite.
All right, here's Grace McLean with Unflinching.
Oh boy. Finished it this morning. Gonna look at the words. Okay. What's it gonna be? Everyone's wondering. Here it comes. There is a door in my heart to which I have lost the key. I buried it before. The thing behind the door could bury me. I've befriended misery. I'm rich in austerity. My adversities are jewels in my crown. I have held my hand unflinching over flame. I had to lock away the part afraid of burning down. Rattles and knocks and rumbles, I keep them locked to keep myself humble. Nobody likes a loud girl. Nobody trusts a hungry girl. Heat and steam and darkness, I cannot breathe, but I vow to harness whatever makes a bad girl. Happiness is a lonely girl. There is a door in my heart protecting a gruesome thing. I dare not set it free, it wants to ruin me. Still I hear it sing. Still listen, shadow is clear vision. Wake up, dear. Let go slow. Shadow reveals the glow. Wake up, dear. Come here. Come here. Come here. There's a disease in my home. It's infected my family. But I am sure I know the cure. I faced my enemy. I have swallowed suffering. Loneliness has ravished me. But I wear my burdens like a crown. I have held my hand unflinching over flame. The fire purified me. The fire purified me.
That was so fun. You wrote that today? Yesterday? Sounds so finished.
It's a combo
amazing.
of an older version and some new stuff. Yeah.
I mean, it sounds, it's so extraordinary sounding, you know?
Thanks.
Incredible. It's so exciting also to be in a virtual situation like this and hear live music. So this is extremely exciting for us. And, you know, we got to see your folks' your pre-recorded thing that you had shared, your project.
Thank you so much for coming to
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
good.
you know, you the two of you inspired us so much because we looked at that and we thought, wow, how did they do that? And can we make that happen for ourselves? But my goodness, I'm so interested to see where you guys are right now, especially since you scratched, you know, a lot of the direction that you were headed with in the version that we saw. And your voice is gorgeous, Grace. I can't even look at you. I can't look at you.
It's infuriatingly good. It's so good.
Beautiful.
With me.
That-
Don't you start.
Grace,
Kalani.
we have a comment from chat. Hi, Grace, from Nick Bem. So excited to see your face and hear about this musical.
Yay! Oh, thank you for watching. Thank you.
Kyle,
did
go
you have
ahead. Blow
another
me up.
question?
Kyle's going to blow me up.
Kalani and I were texting during your song, and he said, oh my God, she's like Florence and the Machine.
Ooh,
But I said
love
Florence and the
that.
piano.
Oh my gosh, that's a subtitle.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Grace and Kate, for sharing Against Women in Music with
Absolutely.
us.
Thank you, Kathy.
And we'll say goodbye for now. And
So
Julian,
good.
So for our last musical, Missing Piece, by Kalani and Kyle, who are both doing book music and lyrics.
Yes.
So tell us about Missing Piece.
Well, Missing Piece is about a young man who wakes up out of a coma and he has considerable memory loss. In fact, he doesn't even remember who he is. And so he doesn't remember his shrouded dark past. His people surround him. So essentially he's meeting his brother, his aunt, his ex-wife, his best friend who happens to be the head nurse at the hospital, and eventually his 9-year-old daughter. And he is seemingly unrecognizable to them because he's bright, positive, and happy. The physician advises that he probably is subconsciously suppressing his memories and that his people ought not give him back his memories, rather allow his memories to come back organically. When they do start to surface, he has to confront all the choices of his past. And he has to face all of his people. So it's a play about second chances. So we were talking about, why don't we just go right into our first video? We have a developmental reading that we went directly into after our Rhinebeck residency, and so we have the luxury of having a cast. And so you're going to see Roman Zaragoza, and he's going to be doing the first piece called Missing Piece. And this is at the moment he finds out how he ended up in the hospital, how he ended up going into the coma. So maybe we can just start off with that.
Do I remember a moment, a time? I don't. How could you do this? I wouldn't do this, would I? I need time, alone. Who am I? What I've done and what I feel, it doesn't match, it doesn't seem the same. How could I? With these hands, with this life, it's all on me, there's no one else to blame. Shame. I have two hands, one may be dirty, the other is clean. I'm just a man, I'm told what I've done, don't know what to believe. Missing piece, memories just out of reach. Invisible identity, I'm a dark and cloudy mystery. Missing piece, missing piece I'm searching for it desperately. How can you see what you cannot see? If I don't know, am I still me? So dark inside of me. Incomplete. I'm incomplete. I'm just a missing piece of who I was. No. Who I was to. No. Who I'm going to be.
Wow, he's amazing.
So talented.
Yes.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. And sorry, go ahead.
He was playing Chase. I don't think we ever said the name of the main character
Yes, yes.
who wakes up from the.
Absolutely. And may I just say a side note, Roman Zaragoza is from our community here in Los Angeles. And I've worked with his sister, his father, and I've worked with him. So this is really special because he had been away for a few years working at Oregon Shakespeare Festival. And so he came and jumped right into this this lead role, and it's just really special to watch it. It's really awesome.
He's amazing. So Kyle, what did you learn in your week with Rhinebeck Writers?
Well, I mean, I think we really explored a lot of different things. We definitely had some very specific goals. The character of Chase's older brother Cole, we knew we wanted to musicalize that role a little bit. So we wrote a song that you'll hear later for him. We really wanted to see how we could infuse more native elements organically into the script without it feeling like we were trying too hard. And we have this wonderful character, Auntie Iris, who really is our bridge into that world and into that community. So we augmented her journey a little bit, added a scene. What else did we do, Kalani?
We wrote 3 songs.
Yes.
And so that was really exciting, and we really wanted to look at the journey of each character because we're a little further along, because all the different projects are at different, varying stages. And we really wanted to look at each character and where they are in the journey, and also, the character of memory, right? And how that character is sort of growing and stuff. So I think our focus was to really look at it with fresh eyes, and also look at it with a lot of time because of the luxury that we had for an entire week just looking at the overall element of it,
One thing I like about Missing Piece is it all takes place in the hospital. It's really self-contained.
Right.
And Chase doesn't know his situation, but everyone else does. So it's very interesting that everyone's in a different place throughout the musical until they come together at the end.
Yeah. In a way, it becomes a little bit of a detective story for the main character.
Right. So why don't you set up the next song for Camille, who's an important character?
Yes. So Camille is ex-wife to Chase, the main character. The two of them, plus Nurse Logan, who is a big part of the of this show, they all grew up together, and they've known each other for a long time. And in the relationship between Camille and Chase has always been a little bit of a lost soul. So Camille has really had to be the strong person in the relationship. And this is really, this happens at at a moment of epiphany for her, where she feels like it's time to let a lot of that go.
So we're going to hear Hands Up.
Knocked down, but I get up again. I'm on my feet before you count to 10. I will always rise up swinging. I will rise up swinging. Too tough, I never give an inch. How could I hear you when my hands were clenched? I would rise up swinging. I would always rise up swinging. Oh, mirror boxing. Tell. I was swinging punches at myself. I got my hands up and my fists are open as our bodies collide. And baby, I'm worn out, but I'm still hoping there's more than one way to fight. And I'm leaving my gloves out of the ring, 'cause an uppercut of love doesn't sting, 'cause I got my hands up, but my fists are open. I got my hands up, but my fists are open. I got my guard down. My heart is open.
Wow. What's that actor's name?
Her name's Nayo, and she is extraordinary. She's been a friend of mine for many, many years. I don't want to date either of us, but we've been friends for very long time. And she's so extraordinary. It's like this role was written for her, with her in mind.
Wow.
Yes.
So you told me that you added two or three new songs during
We
your...
did,
Yeah.
yes. One of the songs, which we'll only hear a very little bit of in the musical, is the song that Chase, when he wakes up from his coma, he finds a piano and he sits down and he writes a song, which is a surprise to everyone in his life because he hasn't touched the piano since he was a little kid. But the song that is coming up next that we wrote was one for Cole, as I said, the older brother, who again, when their mother passed away, Chase was off in Mexico, drinking tequila and sort of getting lost in his feelings. So Cole really feels like he's had to be brother, father, he's had to be all things for everyone. And out of a moment of a slap, Cole becomes so angered by Chase that he actually strikes him. Comes this song that we what was very interesting for us to write, because a song like this could almost be a little bit laughable because it's out of such a high emotional stakes moment. So we think we did a decent job, and we've got some wonderful transitional moments that I think will also make it compelling. So do you want to play the third song?
What's the actor's name who plays?
The actor's name is Glenn Stanton, and he is also, we have the most amazing actors.
Great. So we're going to hear the video for Enough.
Yes.
say that you don't even know the way you come and go. You taught me like a fucking ghost. Oh, how convenient you delete it when it's working for you. Oh, here we go again. Chaser's feeling low again, about to blow again. There's no knowing when he'll make a mess like no one can. You laid that lifeless and I didn't give a damn. If you lived or died, if you don't care, then why should I? We've been holding you up, but it's never enough. No, it's never enough. Lift you up when it's tough, but it's never enough. No, it's never enough for you. You, for you. You, for you. You, for you. You wrote the play, then turned the page like you don't even know. You memorized, but act surprised that it's your fucking show. Pull back the curtain, one thing certain, this is all about you. Oh, here we go again, leave it up to cold again, leave me cold again. Clouds are rolling in, so it's your cue to go again. We've been holding you up, but it's never enough. No, it's never enough. Lift you up when it's tough, but it's never enough. No, it's never enough.
Fighting for you, we'll keep fighting for you. We are your people, feel your lifeline beating through us. We'll keep fighting for you, we'll keep fighting for you. We are your people, got the same blood, same blood.
Keep fighting for you. We'll keep fighting for you. We are your people. Feel your lifeline beating through us. We'll keep fighting for you. We'll keep fighting for you. We are your people. Got the same blood, same blood.
Hey.
80s power ballad.
Yeah.
Rock on.
So good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Your singers are. Oh, I'm on my singy voice. Your singers are amazing. Oh my
Aren't
god.
they great?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
So good.
Yeah, that last song, it's going to be a totally stylized thing, you know, like Kyle had mentioned, comes out of a face slap. So there's going to be like these stylistic things that happen, and as I'm sure you could hear his people surround him. So the idea of losing yourself and coming back to your senses. How do we come back to our senses? It's with our people. It's with our community.
I love
so
that
it's
so
it's gonna be so
much.
fun.
Yeah, I love that ending. I just think it's
Oh, great.
I want to ask you both the inverse question you asked Julian, I suppose, which is just like, what are your favorite parts of collaborating and your least favorite parts of collaborating?
You beat me to the question.
I mean, go for it. Go for it, Glenn.
I think my favorite part about collaborating is that, you know, oftentimes you can, you know, like live theater, you feed off of the energy of the people around you, right? And so having someone with you and being able to be accountable to them, and also to be able to lean on them when you need them. And our particular style is we do a lot of brainstorming, and we talk through scenes and ideas and songs, and so we sort of are constantly like pitching different ideas, and we find ourselves like literally getting up on our feet. This is what we do, and then we're like, and then this happens, and then that happens, you know. So that part of the play is really fun. I think the thing that's challenging is when you're in situations like this where you can't be in the same room and you can't really feel them and be with them, and you know you're kind of like listening, you know, from with something in between you, you know. So I think that's the most difficult thing, but it's really fun when you start having that creepy kind of finish each other's sentences and thoughts, you know. It's like he'll literally be like, you know what I just thought of? I was like, yeah, me too. And it's like, oh wait, you didn't say it yet. Go ahead, say it. That's fun.
I think it's also there's a wonderful divide and conquer element to our relationship. We're putting together. We're doing a Zoom reading of the show. That's why we have all of these pre-record pre-recorded videos. We thought it would be a good idea to do pre-recorded live videos of every song in the show. We thought, and you guys, you all have that experience, so I'm sure you feel our pain. So, you know, we were really able to, Kalani was able to basically sort of direct the reading while I'm, you know, pulling in videos and editing and pulling vocals into my Logic session and tuning them. And, you know, it's nice to have somebody to do this with.
Yes. Basically, so what Kyla's talking about is that last week was our writer's residency, and we went directly into a week that Native Voices has created a developmental workshop for us. So we have the luxury of having 7 actors and a stage manager. So we did a very bare bones, minimal thing, and of course we ended up making it a lot more ambitious. So we have like basically about, 15 hours of rehearsal with the actors. And then, so we did an initial read through, so we got to hear all the new things afterwards, but the initial read was before we went into our writing process. So it's been such a gift. So shout out to Native Voices, Robin Hetrick, Elisa Blanford, Delana Studi, and Randy Reinholz, and Jean Bruce Scott, who originally workshopped it for us a year ago. So this has been such a challenge for us. We hit the ground running with our writer's residency, and we haven't stopped yet. So we're exhausted. We're like watching. So we're actually having a reading in a couple days. So that's why it's like extra emotional. You know, it's like when you're really tired and then you see this stuff and you're like, we wrote that. They're saying it. You know, it's so like vulnerable. So it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you, Kathy, for
you're
this
welcome.
opportunity.
I just want to say honestly, and I think probably all of us feel the same way, that none of what's happening in our lives would be happening if it wasn't for you, Kathy, and if it wasn't for this retreat. You know, that giving us that week to really focus on this, and you know, it has a domino effect. So thank you so much.
Well,
really
thank you, and of course I have to thank our board of directors and everyone, all the reading committee who helped select all of you, and of course I have to thank our donors. We're so proud to give you this despite the pandemic, and it's all thanks to our donors, the National Endowment for the Arts, New York State Council on the Arts. The lead supporter for the TENN residency is the ASCAP Foundation Art Howard Fund. Lead supporters for Steve and Paula Reynolds, and underwriting support came from Against Women in Music. Against Women in Music came from the ASCAP Foundation, Art Howard Fund, and Jackie and Rose. So it's an honor to support all of you, and if any of you watching right now would like to support these amazing writers and all of our writers, there's a link in the YouTube chat and a link below in the description below the screen. And do you all have any sort of final comments before we say goodbye?
I do want to plug our reading. Can I plug our reading?
Yeah, is it open?
It is open. It's secretly open.
Okay.
And I have, there's a Missing Piece the Musical Instagram, and I've put the link to register for the reading, which is free, in the bio of that Instagram page.
And what's the name of the Instagram page again?
Missing Piece the Musical, right, Kalani?
Missing Piece
Yes.
the Musical.
With all underscores in between each word.
Okay, great.
Thanks.
Oh, well, thank you so much, all of you, for sharing with us. Everybody watching, our final Meet the Writers is Saturday, August 29th, which will be a lot of fun. So keep looking at our Facebook and our Instagram and our website to get more info. And so I will say goodnight to you talented, wonderful people now.
Oh boy. Oh boy. It's so nice to see you. It's so nice to see you and to see your work. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Mm-hmm.